The sharp echo of polished shoes hitting marble floors cut through the quiet school hallway. Students froze mid-step. A man in an expensive charcoal suit stood near the entrance, his voice cold, slicing through the air like glass. "Is this how you maintain a school?" he snapped, glaring at an elderly janitor gripping a worn mop. The janitor didn't respond immediately. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something deeper. And as the silence stretched, one student whispered under her breath, "Why does he look like he's about to cry?" The man in the suit was Adrian Voss, a billionaire CEO known for his ruthless business tactics and impossible standards. His presence alone changed the atmosphere. Teachers straightened. The principal hovered nervously behind him, wiping sweat from his brow. Adrian's eyes scanned every corner of the hallway, spotless tiles, pristine walls, yet his expression remained unimpressed. He didn't just expect perfection, he demanded it. To him, excellence wasn't optional. It was the bare minimum. But standing across from him was someone the world had long stopped noticing. Mr. Elias Carter, the school's janitor. His uniform was faded. His shoes were worn thin. Deep lines traced his face like a map of decades filled with quiet struggle. But his eyes, they held something rare. Patience. Kindness. And a strange, almost unshakable calm. Students loved him. Not because he told stories or made grand gestures, but because he always noticed them. A dropped book. A quiet tear. A lonely lunch table. He noticed. And somehow, that mattered more than anyone realized. Adrian stepped closer, his voice lowering but growing sharper. "There's dust on the window frames. Trash near the back staircase. And don't think I didn't notice the scuff marks outside the auditorium." His tone wasn't just critical, it was humiliating. "In my company," he continued, "people lose their jobs for less." The principal swallowed hard. "Mr. Voss, I wasn't speaking to you." His gaze locked onto Elias. The hallway had gone completely silent now. Even the distant hum of classroom chatter seemed to fade. Elias tightened his grip on the mop handle. "I'll clean it again," he said quietly. Adrian scoffed. "Again? It should have never been missed in the first place." A few students shifted uncomfortably. One girl clenched her fists. Another looked down, unable to watch. But Elias, he simply nodded. "I understand." And somehow, that calm response only irritated Adrian more. What no one knew was that Adrian hadn't come here just for inspection. This school wasn't random. It had been selected. Purchased. Every renovation, every upgrade, every improvement, funded quietly by him. But not out of generosity. Out of something unresolved. Something unfinished. And now, standing in these halls again after decades, something inside him was unraveling. He turned back to Elias, studying him more carefully this time. "Tell me," Adrian said, crossing his arms. "How long have you worked here?" Elias hesitated. "Long enough," he replied. That answer lingered in the air. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Not good enough. I asked for a number." 32 years. A flicker passed through Adrian's eyes, so brief no one noticed. But something had shifted. A loud crash suddenly echoed from down the hallway. A stack of books had fallen near a locker. Without hesitation, Elias stepped away from Adrian and hurried toward the sound. A young boy stood there, frozen, clearly embarrassed. I'm sorry," the boy stammered. Elias knelt slowly, despite the stiffness in his joints, and began picking up the books. "No harm done," he said gently. "Happens to the best of us." The boy hesitated. "You're not mad?" Elias smiled softly. "Why would I be?" The simplicity of that question hung in the air. Students nearby exchanged glances. But behind them, Adrian watched. And something about that moment, so small, so ordinary, hit him harder than anything else that day. Adrian's expression began to change. Not softer, but conflicted. He stepped forward again, slower this time. 32 years, he murmured. Elias stood up, handing the boy his books. Take care, all right? The boy nodded and hurried off. Adrian's voice dropped, quieter now. You've been here that long, and this is where you ended up? The question sounded like an insult. But there was something else beneath it. Something heavier. Elias looked at him, not defensively, not angrily, just steadily. I didn't end up here, he said. I chose to stay. A few students leaned in closer, sensing something deeper unfolding. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Why would anyone choose this? That question carried more weight than he intended. And for the first time, Elias didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked around the hallway. At the lockers. The classrooms. The students watching quietly. And then, he looked back at Adrian. Because some places are worth more than they seem. Adrian's breath caught. Because suddenly, something about this man felt familiar. Adrian took a slow step forward. Look at me, he said. Elias did. And in that moment, time seemed to collapse. Years peeled back. Memories resurfaced like waves crashing against a shore long forgotten. A younger version of himself. A scared boy. Standing in this very hallway. Alone. Hungry. Invisible. And then, a hand on his shoulder. A quiet voice saying, "You're not alone, kid." Adrian's expression cracked. "It's you." The words barely came out. Students looked between them, confused. Elias didn't smile. But his eyes softened. "You finally remembered." A stunned silence spread across the hallway. Adrian staggered back slightly, as if the ground beneath him had shifted. "You," he whispered. "You were the one who stayed late," Elias finished gently. "Made sure you had something to eat. Helped you clean up after everyone else went home." A student gasped softly. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, disbelief flooding his face. "I thought you left." "I stayed," Elias said. "Someone had to." The weight of those words hit like a storm. Because while Adrian had built an empire, this man had built something else. Something quieter. But no less powerful. Adrian looked around the hallway again. But now, he wasn't seeing dirt or imperfections. He was seeing memories. Moments. A version of himself he had buried under success and status. His voice trembled, just slightly. "And I just stood here and talked to you like you were nothing." Elias shook his head. "You talked like someone who forgot." That hit harder than any insult ever could. Students watched in stunned silence as the powerful CEO, the man who intimidated boardrooms and controlled billion-dollar deals, struggled to hold himself together. "I didn't forget," Adrian said, his voice cracking. "I just buried it." Elias nodded slowly. "Sometimes we all do." Adrian took a deep breath. Then, something unexpected happened. He stepped forward, and extended his hand. But not as a CEO. As a man. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For everything you did, when no one else cared." Elias looked at his hand for a moment. Then shook it. "You made something of yourself," he said. "That's thanks enough." Adrian shook his head. "No, not without you." The hallway remained silent. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one felt full. Full of understanding. Of respect. Of something real. Adrian turned to the principal. "Effective immediately," he said, his voice steady again, but different now, warmer, grounded. "I want Mr. Carter recognized. Properly. Not just for his work, but for his impact." He glanced back at Elias. "Because some people don't just clean buildings. They build lives." A few students began to clap. Then more joined. Until the entire hallway filled with applause. Elias looked down, slightly embarrassed. But his eyes, they shimmered. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Adrian lingered for a moment. "Do you still stay late sometimes?" he asked quietly. Elias smiled faintly. "Old habits." Adrian nodded. "Maybe I'll stay too." For the first time in years. He wasn't in a rush to leave. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more stories of kindness. And if you've ever experienced a moment like this, share it in the comments. Your words might inspire someone else.